Hare Krishna, dear students. Vanchakalpatarishya, Kripasanjaya Titanam Pavanivyo Vaishnavivyo Namo Namaha. Welcome back. So today we're going to complete chapter 1. Krishna willing. So let's start with the invocation. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnanjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manavishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagujatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitam Cha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostite Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanusate Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jai Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swamini Tinamane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarane. I'm happy to be back here again with all of you. Looks like there's less today. Yesterday we had like 2 pages full of students. Today we have 1. Hopefully they'll show up. Okay, so thank you for being here on time and with your videos on and alert and ready to dive into the nectar of Krishna's Bhagavad Gita. So yesterday we started off by talking about Prabhupada's mood and mission. And why is it important for us as members of ISKCON to understand Srila Prabhupada's mood and mission? Why is it something that we focus on? Why is it one of the aims of the Bhakti Shastri course? Yes, Vaibhavi.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. Mataji, to understand the mood of Srila Prabhupada and to understand the mission is important for us so that we can serve with the mood of Srila Prabhupada, because he had the mood of his Guru Maharaj, because Srila Prabhupada was following the parampara, and that's what ISKCON teaches us, to follow the teachings in the systematic way. That is why it is very much important for us to understand the mood and mission. Hare Krishna.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes. Jyoti.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. If we understand the mood and mission of Srila Prabhupada nicely, then whenever, when we are reading the Bhagavad Gita, when we are trying to understand it, we will understand it in that particular mood, and we will be able to apply it in that particular mood. If we are not able to understand the mood, then we may take it otherwise, or we may not be able to understand it very nicely. So in order to understand it perfectly, we need to first understand the mood and mission, and then understand the rest of the part.
Okay, so it helps us understand the Bhagavad Gita. Yeah, what else? Tulsi Devi.
Hare Krishna. First of all, when we have to understand the mood and mission of Srila Prabhupada, because we have to understand Bhagavad Gita, because it is very important for us, our life or our material existence, because we are materially because we are materially here. For some reasons or for sometimes we are materially here. But if we understand Bhagavad Gita, we will understand the spiritual activities, the spiritual world. And for this, we have to, first of all, we have to understand mood and mission of the Srila Prabhupada. And yesterday class, you said that there are 12 aims in Bhakti Shastri course.
Okay, so that's the same point, that it helps us understand the Bhagavad Gita. A different point, please. Pandit Gadadhar.
Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. So we need to understand the mood and mission of Srila Prabhupada so that we can be more compassionate for the fallen souls and can preach nicely the message of Srimad Bhagavad Gita.
Okay, good. Yeah, so Srila Prabhupada had a particular mood in presenting the philosophy of Krishna consciousness through Bhagavad Gita. And so it's important for us to understand Prabhupada's mood so that when we present the philosophy of Krishna consciousness to others by teaching Bhagavad Gita or other shastras, that we also present them in the same mood, that mood of humility, of compassion, of not changing anything, of offering all credit to our spiritual masters and Shiksha and Diksha Gurus who have given us the knowledge, being grateful, really wanting to deliver, the souls out there from suffering and help take them back to Godhead, because that's the mood that works. That's the mood of the pure devotee. So we want to try to imbibe that mood, because that will increase our effectiveness. And also it's important for us to understand Prabhupada's mission so that we can carry out his mission, because after all, we're servants. As members of ISKCON, we are servants of Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada is our preeminent Shiksha Guru. So we're all meant to be contributing towards his mission, pushing forward his mission. So if we're going to serve Srila Prabhupada properly, then we need to actually know what his mission is. Because if we're not clear what his mission is, then how are we going to know what to do? And we might end up just doing our own thing. And then, the movement as a whole might end up going into mission drifting from Prabhupada's mission and just getting distracted by other things. So as members of ISKCON, we need to stay faithful and loyal to Srila Prabhupada in helping him achieve what he actually wanted to achieve. So it's important for us to understand the 7 purposes of ISKCON and push those forward with all of our efforts, and try to do so also in the same mood that he did it, like that. So this is very Prabhupada's mood and mission is instructive for us as his followers, because to follow means to follow what he said, to follow what he established in the same mood and in the same mission. Okay, thank you. So now let's go on. We started talking already about the soldiers on the battlefield and Duryodhana, his diplomacy. In text 2, actually, there's a Sanskrit phrase at the end of the verse, text 2. It says, Raja Vachanam Abravit. So that whole phrase is indicating Duryodhana's diplomacy. So Vachanam Abravit. Vachanam means words, and Abravit means spoke. So it's redundant to say that someone spoke words, because obviously if you're speaking words. So the redundancy here is not a mistake. It's actually significant in that Duryodhana's speaking words means that he's not speaking straightforwardly. He's speaking diplomatic words. He's speaking duplicitous, conniving, scheming words. And we're going to hear, and we heard an example of that in text 3, where he was calling out his martial teacher for being foolish, and instructing the person who is going to kill him. And this also is a very bad omen for Duryodhana, because to disrespect the guru, to confront your spiritual master and tell him that he did something foolish, that's like really bad, right? That's like a big no-no. So we see the results of that in Srimad Bhagavatam, that when Indra disrespected Brihaspati, and Indra didn't even say anything disrespectful, just that when Brihaspati entered the assembly, Indra didn't stand up and offer respect like that. He just stayed seated. And Brihaspati was so annoyed with him for that disrespect that he just turned his back and walked away. And what happened? The demigods became weak and they were defeated by the demons. So here we are at the brink of a war, the time when you need to be strong. And the last thing you want to do is disrespect your spiritual master, because that's the thing that just makes you weak, because it disconnects you from the source of empowerment. So we're going to see that that happens to Duryodhana. Okay, so let's go on. So the next thing that's going to happen here is that, well, what Duryodhana is doing here is that he's surveying the opposing forces. He's looking at the Pandavas' army, and he's pointing out things to Dronacharya. So first, he points out Drushtadumna, then he points out many other warriors on the other side, who are all equal in fighting to Bhima and Arjuna. He mentions Bhima and Arjuna because Bhima and Arjuna are incredibly powerful, right? And he's especially afraid of Bhima because, one, he knows that Bhima hates him, hates his guts, as we say. You know, Bhima is just like, has been just eager to kill him since a long time ago. And Bhima had made these vows, these very vicious vows, that one, that he would kill all of the 100 sons of Dhritarashtra. These vows he made at the time when Draupadi was offended in the royal assembly at the time of the gambling match. So at that time, he just wanted to pounce on Duryodhana and Dushashana and tear them apart, but Maharaj Yudhisthira wouldn't let him. They were like, okay, I can't kill them now, but when the time comes, I'm going to kill every single one of the 100 sons of Dhritarashtra, headed by Duryodhana. And specifically Duryodhana, he vowed to break Duryodhana's thigh, because when Duryodhana so-called won Draupadi in the gambling match, he pulled up his cloth, his dhoti, and he exposed his whole leg all the way up to his upper thigh. And then he was patting his thigh and saying, "Come here, Draupadi, my darling, and just sit on the lap of your new master." So and Bhima was livid. He said, "I'm going to crush that thigh that you showed in such a low class, lustful way." And then the third thing is that because when they went to Draupadi's quarters to bring her down to be wagered in the gambling match, Dushashana, who was Duryodhana's brother, he went there and he grabbed her by the hair and he pulled her by force down into the assembly. And she wasn't even dressed properly. Her hair was loose, and she was just in her room, and she wasn't prepared to go in front of everyone. And then he just pulled her so roughly. Bhima became very angry. He said, "I'm going to rip off that arm, same arm that he pulled Draupadi by the hair. I'm going to rip off his arm. And not only that, but I'm going to tear out his heart and drink his blood." So those were the vows that Bhima made. And in those times when someone made a vow, it was like serious. It was like they were going to do or die. So Duryodhana knew about these vows, and he was very fearful. So he's worried about Bhima, and he's saying about, and Arjuna, his skills as an archer excelled everyone by far. So there's Bhima, Arjuna, and then there are other fighters who are as heroic and as skilled in fighting practically as Bhima and Arjuna. And then he lists all the names there. But then he turns to his own army. So he's kind of saying that they have all these powerful warriors out there, but look who we have on our side. And then he starts listing the names of the soldiers on his side. And it's true that Duryodhana did have a lot to be proud of. He's very proudly announcing these names. Because the Kaurava army, for one, was much larger than the Pandava army. And he also had some of the best warriors like Bhishma and Karna, who either one of them was capable of defeating the Pandavas. But the thing is that, as the saying goes, might does not make right, right? Just because you're stronger and doesn't mean that you are right. And the fact is that even if all odds are against us, it's the good guy who wins in the end. And Krishna confirms this later in the Bhagavad Gita in 10:38, where he says that of victory I am morality. So that means that I am the morality of the victorious. Or in other words, it's by morality that one gains victory. It's not by physical strength. It's not by martial skill. It's not by diplomacy. It's by morality. And so all good things come from morality. And that's why, they're the classical 4 Purusharthas, the Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. So everything comes from Dharma. Without Dharma, you don't get anything. You just get suffering and degradation. So sometimes it looks like in the material world that sinful people, who cheat and lie and steal, it seems that they get ahead. It seems that they're getting some advantages and success in some ways in life. But actually, they're just increasing the conditions of their bondage and suffering. And all of those consequences are going to fall on their heads sooner or later. So, yeah, it's important to remember that by doing the right thing, we're going to succeed. Because in the material world, most people are materialistic and not very moral at all. And when we take to spiritual life, especially Krishna consciousness, because it's such a high level of spiritual life, even compared to other religious people, we may feel very outnumbered, right? Like we're very much in the minority as, Krishna conscious devotees. So in our weaker moments, we might start to think that, well, millions and billions of people are doing something else. And they can't, the numbers just show reality, that billions of people can't be wrong. So why am I trying to do something different? Why don't I just go with the flow? Sometimes we might think like that. But the fact is that just because everyone's doing it also doesn't make it right. So might doesn't make right, and numbers also don't make it right. We don't just want to be in the majority or in the mainstream. We want to live a life of value that's based on higher principles. We want to live a life which will yield eternal benefits for ourselves and others. So this is what we're seeing in Bhagavad Gita, is how to do this. So now the armies are assembled and the battle's about to begin. And Bhima, let's see, Bhishma. So first of all, so he praises Bhishma Dev. He says there are personalities like you, Bhishma. Let's see, where is that verse? Yeah, he's glorifying the key warriors on his side. And it's significant here where it says in text 9, there are many other heroes who are prepared to lay down their lives for my sake. So the Acharyas comment that, well, Srila Prabhupada, he says right here in the purport that all are determined to lay down their lives for Duryodhana's sake. In other words, it's already concluded that all of them would die in the battle of Kurukshetra. So they're prepared to lay down their lives, and they are going to lay down their lives. They are going to give up their lives for Duryodhana. So it's just amazing, that all these people, like millions of warriors out there, and they're all prepared to give their lives for this demoniac, conniving person who cheated the Pandavas out of their kingdom, who did so many nefarious things. And it just shows how people are so, people don't think. A lot of people, they're just very gullible. They just follow the leader without really just blindly. So we really need to not do that. We really need to be people of integrity and values. And like I was saying, not just go with the flow, not just follow the leader just because they're the leader, but to actually do the right thing. Yeah. So yeah, so now this is where text 10 is where he gives a lot of credit to Bhishma Dev. He says, our strength is immeasurable and we are perfectly protected by grandfather Bhishma. Whereas the strength of the Pandavas, carefully protected by Bhima, is limited. So in this verse, he's making it seem like, yeah, Bhishma Dev is our saving grace, that we're perfectly protected by grandfather Bhishma. So of course, Bhishma is standing there. So Bhishma Dev is hearing that, and he wants to encourage Bhishma Dev to fight because he knows that really, like, Bhishma Dev is one of his key players in the battle. And he knew that Bhishma Dev was going to fight for him because when Draupadi was insulted, he didn't say a word. And so that showed that even though Bhishma knew that it was wrong, because obviously Bhishma knew it was wrong to do that with Draupadi, he didn't say anything. So even though Bhishma Dev also knows that it's wrong for Duryodhana to kill the Pandavas and even be doing this whole battle, he's not going to stand up for what's right. So, yeah. But then in the next verse in text 11, now it's almost like you can imagine here on the battlefield that he just announced, yes, we're protected by Bhishma Dev. But then he kind of like steps aside and goes to all of the other, junior generals. And then he says, but all of you have to support Bhishma Dev because, he's an elderly person and, he needs to be protected. So he says, all of you stand at your strategic points and give support to Bhishma Dev. So he doesn't want anyone to feel like, oh, well, if it's all about Bhishma, then I don't need to fight very much. Just let Bhishma win the battle for us. So Duryodhana doesn't want anyone to feel slighted or discouraged from fighting to their full capacity. So he does this to encourage everyone to just give it their all. Okay, so now they're going to start blowing the transcendental conch shells. And so Bhishma Dev is the first one to blow his conch, very loudly, making the sound like the roar of a lion, giving Duryodhana great joy. So yeah, so Bhishma Dev, he's trying to reciprocate with Duryodhana, and Bhishma Dev understands that Duryodhana is not as confident as he appears to be, because Duryodhana is like, yeah, this and that, and the other person, and look at us, and we're great. So Bhishma Dev is trying to, Prabhupada says, out of natural compassion for Duryodhana, his grandson, he tried to cheer him up by blowing his conch shell very loudly. But then Prabhupada goes on to say that the symbolism of the conch shell shows that actually Duryodhana is not going to win this battle, because the conch is the symbol of Lord Vishnu. And of course, the side of Lord Vishnu or Krishna is going to be the winning side. So this is kind of characteristic of the position of Bhishma Dev, that externally he's supporting the Kauravas, but internally he's favoring the Pandavas because he's a devotee. Bhishma Dev is a devotee of Krishna. And he's in the Dasya Rasa, in other words, he's a servant of Krishna. But the reason that he's on the opposite side is because he has a secondary rasa of Virya Rasa, which is chivalry. So Bhishma Dev, his constitutional position is to fight with Krishna, to serve Krishna by fighting with him, and giving Krishna great pleasure by fighting. Because Krishna doesn't, when it comes to demons, he just kind of kills them quickly. But when he really wants to have a good time fighting, he always fights with his devotees. And that's why Jai and Vijay had to come to the material world to become Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakashipu, to become Ravana and Kumbhakarna, and then finally Shishupal and Dantavakra. And in all of those battles, Krishna, he fought like at length, and he fought with style and with all kinds of battle what do you call it, tactics. And yeah, so each one of those fights were different, but they gave great pleasure to Krishna, because Krishna was fighting ultimately with his devotees. Whereas Kamsa, he just goes in there and gives him a good punch and done. With all the demons that come to Vrindavan, he just polishes them off really quickly. So yeah, and although Krishna takes a vow not to fight, the only person that he kind of almost fights with is Bhishma Dev, because that's their relationship. So, all right, so all the conch shells are blowing. And yeah, the combined sound was tumultuous. So you can just imagine all these conch shells. And yeah, we mentioned how Bhishma Dev blowing his conch shell was a sign that the Pandavas would win, because it's a symbol of Lord Vishnu. But also when the Pandavas go to blow their conch shells are called Divya Shanko. The Shanka means conch, and Divya means divine or transcendental. So the conch shells of the Kauravas were just ordinary conch shells, but the conch shells blown by the Pandavas side were Divya Shanko. They were transcendental. And the result of those, the Pandavas conch shells, was that it shattered the hearts of the sons of Dhritarashtra. And there's no description of the Kauravas conch shells causing any distress to the hearts of the sons of Pandu at all. But yeah, so that's a contrast. Prabhupada points that out. This text 14 has a good list of some of the omens that show us that the Pandavas are going to win the battle. So first of all, there's that Divya Shanka that I already mentioned, the transcendental conch shells. And then also that Krishna is mentioned in that verse as Madhava. The Madhava means the husband of the goddess of fortune. So that it signifies that the Pandavas are going to be fortunate. There's not going to be any misfortune for them. In other words, all the misfortune is going to be for the Kauravas, because they're going to die. Whereas the Pandavas are going to be blessed with good fortune and fame and fortune and victory. Then another thing here is Mahati Syandane, which means the great chariot. So this chariot that Arjuna was in was not an ordinary chariot, but it was a gift from Agni Dev, from the demigod of fire. And Prabhupada says that this chariot was capable of conquering all sides wherever it was drawn over the three worlds. So he had that very special chariot. And also it was drawn by Swaitar Hayer, the white horses. So that the white horses are associated with the white horses that draw the sun god's chariot. So sometimes it seems that the sun is setting and there's some darkness, but the sun rises again. So the Pandavas, they went through this phase in their life where it looked like they were the losers, that they were sent into exile and living out there in the forest. They had lost their kingdom, lost their power. But the sun is going to rise, and these horses are going to draw the chariot to victory. And then the last of the omens comes later. It comes in text 20, and that is Kapi Dvaja. Kapi Dvaja means the flag that's marked with Hanuman. And this is very significant. Prabhupada talks about how just as Hanuman served Lord Ramachandra by fighting, so Arjuna is also going to serve Krishna by fighting. And so by doing so, Arjuna is following in the footsteps of the fighting Acharya. And Hanuman is the fighting Acharya, that he brought victory for Ram. And so in the same way, Arjuna is going to bring victory for Krishna. Because in fighting this battle, he's helping Krishna in his mission, which is Paritranaya Sadhunam Vinashaya Chaduskrita Dharma Samstapanartaya Sambhavami Yuge Yuge. To deliver the pious, to annihilate the miscreants, as well as to establish the principles of religion. Krishna says, I myself appear millennium after millennium. So in this battle, so many demons are going to be killed. And then ultimately, all the pious people are going to be delivered, because the pious Yudhisthira is going to be enthroned as king. And then he's going to ensure that religion is practiced in human society all over the planet, which he's ruling. And not only that, but Krishna is speaking the Bhagavad Gita. So in presenting this Bhagavad Gita, he's reestablishing the principles of religion, because Bhagavad Gita is full of religious principles. So all these missions are being fulfilled. And so that's 4 signs of victory. And another one, the first one actually was in the very first verse of the Bhagavad Gita, Dharma Kshetri, Kuru Kshetri. So Dharma Kshetri, Dharma means religion, and Kshetra means the field. So Kuru Kshetra is the field of religion. And field, if you think of like an agricultural field, if you're cultivating a crop in the field, then you need to pull up the weeds. So this battle on the field of religion, in the field of religion, the way to cultivate that field is to pull up and remove sinful activities, sinful mentalities, or demoniac people. So this battle is on the field. The act of the battle is going in there to pull up the weeds. And the weeds are all the Kauravas headed by Duryodhana. So they're all going to be removed from the field and thrown into the compost heap, thrown into the burning pile. Yeah. Okay, any questions at this point? Yes, Pandit Gadadhar.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Mataji, I have one question with respect to the V-trust that you just stated for Bhishma Dev. So we saw that Krishna never fight in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So how Bhishma Dev is giving pleasure to Krishna without even fighting?
Well, because Bhishma, I mean, even though Krishna doesn't, like release arrows in that sense, but still he's right there in the thick of it. He's feeling all the feelings of battle. And so when he's confronted, when he's face to face with Bhishma Dev, then, he's feeling the intensity of the battle. And Bhishma Dev is shooting Arjuna, trying to shoot Arjuna with his arrows. But also sometimes he's hitting Krishna, because Krishna's in the front. So Krishna in battle, he's not fighting, but he's getting wounded. It's typical that the chariot drivers get wounded and sometimes killed, although they're, not holding weapons. So Krishna, it's described that he's sweating, he's covered in dust, he's dripping with blood, like that. And that's another reason that Bhishma Dev wanted to be on the other side, because if he was behind Krishna, he wouldn't be able to see. He wouldn't be able to get a good darshan, okay? But because he's opposed to Krishna, then he can see Krishna's face. He can see the intensity of, Krishna. He's like driving the chariot. His brow is like this, and he's exerting himself. He's sweating. He's bleeding. It's like he gets to see that darshan of Krishna, which is his Ishtadev. That's the form on which he meditates. And we see, like in the first canto, when Bhishma Dev is leaving his body, he says, I want to see that form of Krishna standing before me on the battle, dripping with blood, and like that. That's the form of Krishna that he wants to meditate on in time of death. So that's his worshipable Krishna. Yeah. Okay, Dayalohana.
Hare Krishna. I want to repeat that signs of victory. Four sign of victory. I want that to be repeated.
Oh, you'll have to watch the recording then. Or ask one of the students who noted them down. Simal Sindhu from Hyderabad.
Hare Krishna Mataji, I have to ask, why does Bhima want to drink the blood of his heart? Isn't he a Vaishnav?
Why did what?
I mean, why does Bhima want to drink blood of the Dhritarashtra brother? He's a
This is the
Vaishnav.
Kshatriyas. This is Kshatriya mentality. They like this kind of thing. This is like, this is exciting for them, That's the nature. If you don't have a Kshatriya nature, you can't understand this kind of thing. But the Kshatriyas, this is what enthuses them. And he did that. He actually did that. It's described in the Mahabharata how, he tore open Duryodhana's chest and he tore out his heart, and he had his hands cupped like this with a beating heart in it and the blood, and he just sipped the blood. And then he's like, ah. That was like nectar for him. It was like full satisfaction. Yeah. So it's a different, it's a different kind of thing. The way that we practice Krishna consciousness in ISKCON is different from the way the Pandavas practice their Krishna consciousness. We don't hear that they were sitting down and chanting japa. But Krishna told Arjuna, Anusmarana yudyamscha. He said, your meditation is think of me, remember me, and fight. So that was his sadhana. His sadhana was to fight while remembering Krishna. It's different. But it's all transcendental. And it's all very pleasing to Krishna. Jyoti.
Hare Krishna Mataji, I wanted to ask, since Bhishma Dev, he was so much pious, so when Draupadi, during when she was getting disturbed, why he didn't try to protect her? I just wanted to understand this point.
Yudhisthira?
Yeah. Why Bhishma Dev?
Oh, Bhishma Dev.
Yeah. Why he didn't try to protect Draupadi when she was being disturbed? Because he was very pious. He
Yeah.
was.
Well, there's an external reason and an internal reason. So the external reason is that Prabhupada says that because he was being maintained by Duryodhana, he was being maintained by the throne of Hastinapur at the time, was Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana. So he was living with them. They were feeding him, giving him, everything that he needed. So, so he was obligated. Yeah, that's another thing that we have to be careful of, to not to become materially dependent on sinful people. Otherwise, we become obligated to serve their nefarious ends. That's the external reason. And then the internal reason is that because he wanted to fight with Krishna. He wanted to be on the opposing side because that's his constitutional position.
So before only he knew that Krishna was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Before the war only he knew that Krishna was the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Oh yeah, Bhishma Dev. I mean, he's one of the 12 Mahajanas. He's a pure devotee. He knows these things.
Thank you.
Nishta.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Mataji, while we were discussing about the vows of Bhima, we did discuss about him taking revenge from Duryodhana as well as Dushashana. Now, he did make this promise to Dushashana as well that he's going to rip his heart out and drink his blood. So, did he drink the blood of both the brothers?
Of Dushashana?
As well as Duryodhana?
No, he didn't drink Duryodhana's blood. He later on, at the end of the battle, remember there was the club fight when they were fighting with club, just one-on-one, hand-to-hand combat with clubs. And then Krishna, Bhima was losing his strength. He had more physical strength, but Duryodhana had more skill. And so as the battle went on, then Bhima was getting tired. And then he looked at Krishna because he thought, if I get tired, I'm done, because he has more skill. So then Krishna, he told him, he hinted that you need to get him, hit him below the belt. That was against the rules of club fighting. But that was Krishna's order. So then Bhima, he clubbed him right in the thigh and smashed his thigh. And that's how he died. And then he just left him. Then he just went and put his foot on him and declared victory and like that. He didn't like rip out his heart. He did that to Dushashana.
Sure. Okay, Mataji. I just wanted to confirm the name. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Harini Radhika.
Hare Krishna, Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. Mataji, one question I have from yesterday, the 5 topics of Bhagavad Gita. Can I ask?
Yeah.
Mataji, like Prakriti, you said is eternal because although it manifests and unmanifests, but the cycle of Prakriti goes on, and hence it is eternal. So I wanted to ask, what about time? Like when the Prakriti is manifested, then we have the concept of time as in past, present, and future. But when it is not manifested, everything is inside Mahavishnu. What is the status of time? Does it also appear in cycles like Prakriti, or what? How is time eternal?
Time is also eternal because everything is governed by time. So even while the Prakriti is withdrawn and all the living entities are withdrawn into the body of Mahavishnu and all that, time is still ticking on because that lasts for a certain time scale, right? The yugas are all a certain number of years, and then Brahma's day is when the universe is manifested, so that lasts for a certain number of years. And then Brahma's night, when there's a partial annihilation, that's when the lower and middle planets are destroyed. So that also lasts for a certain amount of time. And also at the end of Brahma's life, then there's a complete dissolution, and that lasts for within due course of time, then everything is created again. So time is governing all these things. Time is always there.
So at the end of Brahma's life, when after that, when the new Prakriti cycle manifests, that is also a specific time.
Everything is going on by these time scales. Yeah, there's a time for everything.
Okay. And Mataji, like Arjun and Bhim, both are Kshatriyas and both are Vaishnavas. But we see at the beginning, Arjun is so compassionate; he's not even able to lift his bow. So at the end, when he decides to fight, he decides because he understands it is for Krishna's pleasure. That is why he uses his Kshatriya spirit to fight to serve. But when Bhim took his vows, what was he like thinking? Like, how could he take such a terrible vows? Although he was a Kshatriya, but he was also a Vaishnava. Why do not we see these qualities of compassion that are manifested in Arjun and Bhim also at that time? Like he was not doing those vows as a service to Krishna. So what can we think?
Well, that was also compassion because he was compassionate. I mean, you could also say the same thing. How is it when their wife was getting offended and abused in front of everybody? How is it that Arjuna could just sit there? Where was his compassion? It looks like the only person with any compassion was Bhima, because he was the one that was disturbed and that was wanting to go there and just take her and pull her out of the hands of those rascals and protect her. And everyone else was just sitting there, apparently cold-hearted, not even caring for her. Right? So you can't say that Bhima doesn't have compassion. It's out of compassion that he wants to fight, because he sees how, people, Draupadi was one person, so many people are suffering under the rule of Duryodhana. When you have a king who's the king of everyone, and he's cruel and narcissistic, he's just does everything for his own self-interest, and he doesn't really care about the good of the people. How can you just sit there? Out of compassion for the people, you need to get rid of that kind of leader.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Vishaka.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
You said that the councils of Kauravas were ordinary, but the councils of Pandus were transcendental. So are the transcendental councils also considered as signs of in the signs of victory?
Yes.
Then we have 4 signs of victory. The word Madhava, white horses, the chariot with white horses, the flag with the Hanuman chitra drawn on the flag, and Dharma Kshetra, Kurukshetra. So then there will be 5 if we count Divya councils.
Yeah, there are 5.
Thank you, Mataji.
Your question says 4?
Yes.
Well, you have to talk to whoever's assessing the exam and see which one they're not thinking of. Okay, can we go on now? All right, now I want to ask you a question. So here we're seeing these armies, and we're talking about blood and, violence and people ripping out people's hearts, and so, weapons and all this. But when we present Bhagavad Gita to people, when we go out on the street and try to distribute Bhagavad Gitas, we say, oh, here's this nice book about yoga and meditation. So what does this chapter 1, all this brutal battlefield scene, what does it have to do with yoga and meditation? Harini, Radhika.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. So, Mataji, I heard that even though externally we might not be in a battlefield, but the situations in our life that we face and how the mind reacts to them, we are always in a constant struggle, constant war with the mind. So in that sort of state, in that fighting state with the mind, we have to take the instructions of Bhagavad Gita, like Arjun did in an external war field.
Okay, good. Yeah, so we see that the reason that Arjuna soon we're going to see Arjuna being very depressed, but the reason that he's struggling and bewildered is because he's on the mental platform, right? And also the word yoga means connection. So the reason that this battle is taking place is because the Kauravas are disconnected from Krishna, and therefore they are have this demoniac mentality. And also the reason that Arjuna also experiences difficulty is because he's forgetting Krishna. He's forgetting that he's a soul, that everyone are souls, that everyone has eternal relationships with Krishna, that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, and he's worried that he's going to lose, or he's worried that people are going to their existence is going to be finished, and he's bewildered because he's disconnected. Nishta.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Mataji, it can be taken as a wake-up call, as in to show that this is it and these are the consequences. And right now also there is a time to turn up to Krishna. And when we do so, Krishna is always there no matter how hard the situation gets. For example, when a child is young and child is being instructed, as in anyone who buys a book and any manual that we get along with it, there is description of everything given in detail. If we still are not following it, the consequences are there. So it's just building up to that.
Yeah. So this is, it's setting the scene to teach us that we need to meditate on Krishna, right? And that when we forget Krishna and meditate on other things, temporary things of this world, then the result is that we're going to be distressed. Okay, I want to go on actually because I don't want to run out of time. But this Bhagavad Gita it's a journey from selfishness to selflessness, right? Because in the beginning, everybody's just thinking selfishly. The Kauravas are thinking selfishly. Even the Pandavas are thinking selfishly. Everybody on the battlefield is self-interested. And we see that later, when Arjuna is saying, oh, what pleasure will we derive from killing the sons of Dhritarashtra? As if it's all about their own pleasure, right? So, but then they're forgetting Krishna and just thinking about what's good for themselves. But then as the Bhagavad Gita goes on, then Arjuna comes to the position of selflessness that, even if it's hard for me, even if it's difficult, even if, the kingdom is tainted with the blood of our relatives, this is for Krishna and I have to follow the order of Krishna because it's not about me, it's about Krishna. It's not about what I want, it's about what Krishna wants. So, like that. Okay. All right, so let's go on. Now we're going to get into the next section, which is all about, let's see, we did all that. Okay, so now we're going to get to Arjuna. Arjuna is going to speak. So now we get to see a contrast between the malicious political maneuverings of Duryodhana and the compassionate, forgiving nature of Arjuna. So from text 20, we'll go from text 20. So now Arjuna is going to speak. Arjuna Uvacha. O infallible one, please draw my chariot between the two armies so that I may see those present here who desire to fight and with whom I must contend in this great trial of arms. So there's some significant things here. One is that from this verse, we can see that Arjuna doesn't really want to fight. He says, Yodavyam, with whom I must contend. In other words, let me see these people who I have to fight with. It's not that he doesn't say who I'm going to fight with or who I will fight with, or he says who I have to fight with. So it's like he has to do it. He doesn't want to do it. That's indicated by that word. And then also, here. Also, he uses the word achyuta, which means infallible. Oh, infallible one. So, this is meaning that one, that Krishna, he's recognizing that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the other is that it means that Krishna is infallible in the sense that Krishna never fails in showing affection to his devotees. So you can see how Arjuna is kind of taking shelter of Krishna. Krishna, you're infallible. I'm totally taking shelter of you. I really need your help right now. And you're always there for your devotees. So please help me. Like that. So, just like whenever we're in difficulty, whenever we're in some trying situation and we call out to Krishna, we can feel Krishna's affection. If we just show some interest in him, do something to please him, then he's going to reciprocate by giving us his special attention, by showering us with his love. And that's Krishna's nature. So he says that in chapter 4. He says, Ye yatam mam prapadyante tams tataiva bhajamyaham. That as all surrender unto him, he rewards them accordingly. So he reciprocates with our the way we approach him, the mood that we approach him with. So here Arjuna's approaching Krishna, he's turning to Krishna, he's addressing Krishna, oh infallible one, please help me understand what's about to happen here. And he doesn't want to, he's not saying let's fight, he's saying let me really take a close look at the situation here, let me really understand what's about to happen. And is it in this purport? Yeah, we see in this section that Arjuna's soft-hearted. He's a soft-hearted devotee. That although he's duty-bound to fight in the battle because he's a Kshatriya and it's his duty to fight, but as soon as he lifts up his bow and even thinks about pulling the string, his heart pains him. Because, yeah, like someone was mentioning, a devotee doesn't want to hurt anyone. A devotee doesn't want to harm even an ant, but to speak of his relatives. So, yeah. In the same way, we should also be soft-hearted. And we are naturally soft-hearted, even though we might not like to admit it. And so, yeah, the world, it's a hard world. You know, the material world is it's a cold, hard world full of pressures and complexities. And those, the hardness of life, you know, like Prabhupada said, this life is like hard wood. It's hard wood. And you always feel like you're just knocking your head against that hard wood. And that tends to make us cold-hearted or hard-hearted. You know, like Duryodhana is, just manipulating people and trying to get things for yourself. That's what the material energy does to us. So we have to actively be conscious of how the world is hardening us and resist these negative influences, and instead cultivate empathy, try to understand each other, try to put ourselves in other people's shoes, try to feel the pain of other people, right? Like Vaishnava, like Prahlad Maharaj is the example of paradukha dukhi, that feeling pain at the suffering of others. And when we feel that empathy, then that actually brings us closer to our real selves and closer to real happiness, because that's the nature of the soul. And why is it the nature of the soul? Because it's the nature of Krishna. But then somebody might argue, well, but doesn't soft-heartedness make us vulnerable and make us, you know, subject to being used and abused by the Duryodhanas of the world? No, because Krishna is always there, because Krishna's protection is infallible, and he's always eager to serve his devotees. And one of the main ways that he serves his devotees, is to protect, to give protection from harm. And when it comes to protecting his devotees, Krishna never fails. So we can count on that. Okay, so as commanded, Krishna brings his chariot there in front of the Kaurava troops. And out of all the places where he could have drawn the chariot, he parks it right in front of Bhishma and Drona. Why? Because those are the two members of the two Kuru elders who are most dear to Arjuna. Bhishma was his beloved grandfather, who raised him like a father after the death of Pandu. And Drona was his very affectionate military teacher, who, you know, Arjuna particularly was Dronacharya's pet student, and Arjuna practically worshipped Dronacharya. So why would Krishna do that? Why would Krishna make it harder for Arjuna? I mean, after all, Krishna wants him to fight. So why didn't he bring him in front of Duryodhana, or bring him in front of, you know, somebody else who had mistreated them, and that maybe Arjuna would become angry and want to fight? Instead, he brings him right in front of the two people that he least wants to fight with, that are going to bring out his affection, his soft-heartedness, his emotions, you know, that we were just talking about. So the reason that he does that is because Krishna wants to emphasize the nature of material life, that time and time again we're put into difficult and confusing situations, and these situations help us to realize our actual position of helplessness and call out to Krishna with feeling. Just like a mother, when the child is crying, she'll rush over and take care of the child and pick him up and put him in the safety of her lap. So Krishna also responds to our sincere cries, and he comes running to pick us up and place us safely above the miseries of material life on the platform of spiritual happiness and knowledge. And often it's the worst difficulties that lead to the greatest good. So in this case, Arjuna's grief is going to lead Krishna to speak the Bhagavad Gita. And if Arjuna didn't get plunged into this total distress, lamentation, and grief, then, you know, if Krishna wouldn't have spoken the Bhagavad Gita. If Arjuna would have just been, all right, let's do it, the conches are blown, let's fight, then there would be no Bhagavad Gita. So Krishna does this just to bring out, just to pull at the strings of Arjuna's heart, so that he can speak the Bhagavad Gita, not just for Arjuna's sake, but for the benefit of all humanity. And not just for the battle, but for all time to come, past, present, and future. Okay. So then, usually when I do this, when I teach this section in person, I have them do an activity. So what I ask the students to do is to bring a picture. Think of somebody that you really love, a beloved family member or a beloved mentor or your spiritual master, and bring a picture. And then I get them to get all their pictures and put them on a board, like on a bulletin board kind of thing. And then I make them all stand there with I take their pen or pencil as a weapon, and then I blow the conch, and then I tell them, now you have to kill that person. And everybody's just standing there, and I'm like, come on, you have to kill them. You're a Kshatriya, you're a fighter, you've been trained for this. Just kill them now. This is the time. Don't be a wimp, don't be a weakling, don't be like a eunuch. Get it, you need to fight. And they're all just standing there. So every time I do that, the students, they're like really feeling the pain, like I had one student, and she was like shaking and crying, and it was like rough, to think of what it might feel like to have to kill your spiritual master, to have to kill, your uncle or your cousin or your brother, or somebody who is so dear to you, your grandfather who has nurtured you with their love, through their whole life, and guided you and taught you valuable lessons in life, and whose shoulder you've cried on when you've had difficulties in your youth and childhood and like that. And now you just have to like shoot an arrow into their heart and kill them. It's just like horrible, right? It's like, so yeah, we always do that. We do that exercise, and I make them stand there long enough to like really start feeling it. And then I have them read these verses. So yeah. So what happens here from text 27, that when Arjuna sees these different grades of friends and relatives, he becomes overwhelmed with compassion. He says, my dear Krishna, seeing my friends and relatives present before me in such a fighting spirit, I feel the limbs of my body quivering and my mouth drying up. So that was exactly the experience that one student had, that she was literally shaking. And I tell them that if you don't kill them, they're going to kill you. And then I ask, how did you feel? I was thinking, let them kill me. Better they kill me. I'd rather have my guru kill me than have to kill my guru or my husband or my, father or something. And so Arjuna says, my whole body is trembling, my hair is standing on end, and my bow Gandiva is slipping from my hand, and my skin is burning. I am now unable to stand here any longer. I'm forgetting myself, and my mind is reeling. I see only causes of misfortune, O Krishna, killer of the Keshi demon. I do not see how any good can come from killing my own kinsman in this battle, nor can I, my dear Krishna, desire any subsequent victory, kingdom, or happiness. So here Arjuna is starting to give his reasons. Before that, also, Krishna says, when he brings the chariot to the other side, he says, just behold, Partha, all the Kurus assembled here. So he says Kurus because ultimately they're all Kurus, they're all members of the Kuru dynasty. So by him saying, behold all the Kurus, he doesn't say, behold the opposing side, or behold Duryodhana's armies, or he says, behold the Kurus, because he reminds them of the family connection, that you're all in the same. Just behold all your family members, all the members of your dynasty who are assembled here to kill you. Okay, so Arjuna doesn't want to fight. And at the end of this chapter, he gives his reasons. We see his reasons for not wanting to fight. So the first reason for not wanting to fight is in text 27, where it says, Kripaya Paraya Vishto. Kripaya. Kripaya means compassion. So out of his compassion or mercy, he doesn't want to fight, because it's his friends and relatives. They're natural objects of compassion. So just out of plain compassion for not wanting to cause pain and suffering and death to one's friends and family members, then he doesn't want to fight. Then next reason comes in text 32 to 35, where he says, "O Govinda, of what avail to us are a kingdom, happiness, or even life itself, when all those for whom we may desire them are now arrayed on this battlefield?" It's significant that he says, "O Govinda" here, because Govinda means one who gives pleasure to the senses. So he's saying, "Oh, Krishna, you are Govinda. You're supposed to be giving pleasure to the senses. But this battle is just giving so much displeasure. We're not going to have any happiness from this battle. If we lose, of course, we're going to be unhappy. If we win, also, we're going to be unhappy, because all the people that we would desire to have this kingdom for are going to be dead. You're fighting to rule, you're fighting to win over the royal throne, but sitting on that throne, who are you going to rule? Like half of your loved ones are dead. So how can you be happy?" That's what he's saying. "O Madhusudana, when teachers, fathers, sons, grandfathers, maternal uncles, fathers-in-law, grandsons, brothers-in-law, and other relatives are ready to give up their lives and properties and are standing before me, why should I wish to kill them, even though they might otherwise kill me? O maintainer of all living entities, I am not prepared to fight with them, even in exchange for the 3 worlds, let alone this earth. What pleasure will we derive from killing the sons of Dhritarashtra?" So this is his argument. What pleasure will we derive? Ka priti syaj janardana. Ka priti means what happiness, what pleasure. So that's the second reason. And then the third reason is in the next verse, text 36, where he says, "Papam eva shrayad asman," that sin will overcome us. Because he's thinking that, it's sinful to kill your grandfather, to kill your relatives, to kill, your teacher. What could be more sinful? To kill your spiritual master, your person who has given his life who's given his time and energy to impart skills to you for your occupation, so that you can do your duties in the human form of life. And now I'm going to kill him? Like, what is that? That's so sinful. Arjuna is thinking, I should be offering flowers at the feet of Drona and Bhishma, rather than offering arrows, rather than shooting arrows into their bodies. So He's saying this is just not it's not proper to kill your friends. It's not proper to kill your family. Like, who does that? That's terrible. It's unthinkable. See, so what are we going to gain? And then again, he addresses Krishna here as husband of the goddess of fortune. That you're supposed to be Madhava. You're supposed to be bringing good fortune to people. But by making me do this sinful activity, it's going to cause so much misfortune for me. It's going to cause so many sinful reactions. I'm going to suffer. I'm certainly going to go to hell for this. Now, in the purport, Prabhupada talks about how it's not actually sinful for, even materially speaking, even if it wasn't Krishna's order, and even if it wasn't devotional service, which is free from all reactions, still, there would be no sinful reaction for him killing the Kauravas, because according to Vedic injunctions, an aggressor must be killed. And Prabhupada lists these 6 kinds of aggressors: a poison giver, one who sets fire to the house, one who attacks with deadly weapons, one who plunders riches, one who occupies another's land, and one who kidnaps a wife. And the Kauravas did every single one of these, right? They gave poison cake to Bhima. They set fire to the house of Lak, that they were supposed to be their vacation home, and it was all set just to burn them to death. Attacking with deadly weapons. They're doing this now. One who plunders riches. Yeah, they cheated them out of their riches and also out of their land and kingdom during the gambling match. And then who kidnaps a wife. How they took possession of Draupadi and they attempted to disrobe her there in the royal assembly and claimed her as their own property. So like that. And Prabhupada says that such aggressors are at once to be killed, and no sin is incurred by killing such aggressors. So yeah, so there was no sin, even materially speaking, what to speak of when Arjuna was later on fighting as devotional service, which devotional service not only doesn't bring sinful reactions, but it actually purifies us of all our previous sinful reactions from lifetimes, countless sinful reactions. Okay. So now, yeah, then the last reason for not fighting that we're going to see here is here in text 37. O Janardana, although these men, their hearts overtaken by greed, see no fault in killing one's family or quarreling with friends, why should we who can see the crime in destroying a family engage in these acts of sin? So this is the 4th reason, is destruction of dynasty and all the social ills that come as a result of destroying the family. So this is a nice part of Bhagavad Gita where we hear about the value of the family and the value of women and women being protected by the family. Because in families, there are so many traditions. You know, the parents teach the children traditions, religious traditions, how to celebrate festivals, you know, all matters of etiquette, how to receive guests, how to interact with different family members, the elders, the juniors, like that. And so all these family traditions, like offering making offerings to the forefathers to deliver them, all these things are taught by the family. And they're passed down from generation to generation by traditions. So, but the concern here was that if we kill all of these men, because everyone in the battlefield was male, then their wives will not be protected, because the men are supposed to protect the daughters, the wives, and the elderly members of the family. That's what Prabhupada says, that a woman should be under the protection of the father in youth, in childhood, and the husband during the middle part of life, and by the grown-up sons in old age. But on the battlefield, if these, you know, all the adult males are killed, then who's going to protect the daughters? Who's going to protect the young women? Who's going to protect the elderly women? No one. They're going to be unprotected. And then because there are always what Prabhupada calls unscrupulous men in society, or, you know, lustful men who don't have religious values, who, you know, are basically like sexual predators, who chase after women and try to exploit them for their own enjoyment. So if women aren't protected, then these unscrupulous men will have illicit affairs with women, and then the result will be unwanted children. Or Varna Sankara means literally children of mixed Varnas. So the Varna ashram system will be corrupted, will become complicated and difficult to follow. And yeah, so Prabhupada says here that that the Varnashram system is designed so that good population will prevail in society. I'm reading from text 40 purport. For the general spiritual progress of state and community. Now he says that such population, so a good population that leads to the spiritual progress of the state and the community depends on the chastity and faithfulness of its womanhood. So he's emphasizing the value of women here, that the spiritual progress of the state and the community depends on the women. It depends on the women being chaste and the women being faithful. So women are so important, are vital to the maintenance of social progress, especially in spirituality, in the field of religion. But although so much is hinging on women, it's a little bit of a dangerous situation because women are prone to be misled. Because women are by nature very soft-hearted and can tend to be easily swayed by emotions. So when these unscrupulous men come and they have their hidden motives, but they present themselves as gentlemen, as very noble, as very righteous, as kind and caring, and they speak sweet words to the woman. Oh, let me help you, let me protect you, let me take care of you, like that, and make all kinds of promises. Then the woman's like, yes, thank you so much, you're so kind. And then she becomes swayed, thinking that he actually cares about her, thinking that he actually loves her and has her self-interest in heart, that he's an altruistic gentleman. And then as soon as he's confident that she trusts him, then he just does whatever he wants with her. He just uses her for his own sensual pleasure. And then the result is bad. And then he just, leaves and finds another victim. So like that. So that's why women need to be protected. Otherwise, Prabhupada says they will be misled into adultery. And then Prabhupada makes there's this sentence here that according to Chanakya Pandit, women are generally not very intelligent and therefore not trustworthy. So yeah, that can be a hard pill to swallow for for women to hear that kind of thing. Doesn't necessarily mean that women don't have there's different kinds of intelligence. And when Prabhupada says here that, of course, Prabhupada's saying according to Chanakya Pandit. So Chanakya Pandit was not a spiritual authority, he was a politician. And Prabhupada says he was a politician, he was a scholar, he was a worldly man. So when this statement about women is not talking about Vaishnavis, it's not talking about devotee women, it's talking about materialistic women. And Prabhupada specifically says that although Chanakya Pandit was an authority in politics, but he was a worldly man, not a spiritual authority. So that's important to note, that whenever Prabhupada quotes Chanakya Pandit, is referring to things in the material sphere, in the mundane realm of human society, not in spiritual circles, not amongst Vaishnavas. So, and Prabhupada talks about this, that these kinds of statements refer to ordinary women, because women who surrender to Krishna, who have accepted, Lord Chaitanya as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and who are chanting Hare Krishna, sharing, Krishna consciousness with others, they're very intelligent. Right? We know that by the statement from Srimad Bhagavatam that Krishna Varnam Tusha Krishna, Pango Sangastra Parshadam, Yagyai Sankirtana Prayer, Yajanti Hi Sumedasaha. So Medasaha means intelligent, and Su means very. So anybody who is performing the Sankirtan Yagya, understanding that Lord Chaitanya is Krishna and that he's come to this world along with his associates and to inaugurate the Sankirtan movement. Anybody who accepts that and follows that and practices that is Sumedhasaha, is highly intelligent. Highly intelligent. So, yeah. And for that reason, Krishna says later in the Bhagavad Gita that anybody, whether they, even if they're a woman or a Vaishya or a Shudra, or if they're born in a low family, you know, born in a Malecha family or something, it doesn't matter. They can also attain the highest destination. Because the process of bhakti is so powerful that it doesn't depend on birth. It doesn't depend on the type of body you have. It doesn't depend on anything material. It's completely transcendental. So anyone who takes to the process of bhakti is highly intelligent, especially who takes to Sankirtan. That's specifically stated in Srimad Bhagavatam. So these kind of statements in Bhagavad Gita and elsewhere throughout our scriptures, whenever Srila Prabhupada says that women are less intelligent, should not be used to, you know, put the women in our movement down like that. But rather we should see actually what Prabhupada is saying here is that women are so valuable, that the spiritual progress of society depends on the women. And so women are so important, and therefore they need to be protected from these men who are degraded. So the problem is not so much that, you know, the women are less intelligent. The problem is that there are these kind of men out there that will take advantage of womanly weakness in that area. So yes, Rukmini, how do you say Vani?
Krishna. Mataji, it is understood that the statement of Chanakya Pandit in the material manner that women are not very intelligent, but how to understand they are not even trustworthy in a material manner. If we talk about, we are not talking about Vaishnavis, so trustworthy. Therefore, they are not trustworthy.
It's linked to that. It's linked to the thing of being easily swayed by emotions. You know, because a woman who is let's say seduced by a man, right, who flatters her and, you know, gets her emotionally on board with his program, she'll give up her own values. So she may have been trusted to, you know, serve her family, or, you know, take care of, you know, some responsibility, some duty in society. But if she gets involved with one of these low class, you know, men who just want to use her, and she aligns herself with him, then he'll pull her away from her duties. He'll pull her away from her responsibilities and her other relationships. And yeah, so then she becomes untrustworthy. Yes, how do you need Radhika?
Hare Krishna, Maji, Pranam. Maji, like it is said that it is easy to fool women due to their simple-heartedness, which is true. And it is also said that women have that Krishna has blessed women with some strong sense of intuition, with which they can make out that some person does not have the right intentions, which is also true. So how can both be true? That they seem contradictory, because so how to understand this?
Yeah. Well, the intuition thing doesn't always work. That's the trouble. You know, women can very easily get blinded by affection. And so it's often, see, if you're not emotionally, if you don't have an emotional connection with the person, you can see if the person is, you know, if it's somebody else's relationship, right? Then you can really women can get a good sense of whether that's going to be a good relationship, or whether one person is materially motivated, whether it's not a good match or something. You can see that when it doesn't concern yourself. But when it's your relationship, then you just become blind to all of the red flags, you know? I'm sure you might have experienced things like that personally, or seen that in others, that everybody else is like, why are you even talking to that person? You know, like, just get away from that person. Like, no, he's so nice, you know. So yeah, intuition breaks down when our emotions becomes overwhelmed by emotion. Okay, Jyoti.
Hare Krishna Mataji. One thing was going on in my mind was how women are emotionally weak. They can be manipulated emotionally. Similarly, like men, they are more related to lust. They get into lust more easily in the how the in the general life we see examples. So how the weakness of the women are emotions. So similarly, men also have their own weaknesses. So why is it only women mentioned there? Okay, women should be protected. Yeah, that point is true, but both have their own weaknesses.
Yeah, and we see how all these men are just drawn into war, you know, because of their lust for power, lust for position, and all that. So definitely, and what to speak of just basic physical lust, you know, for sensual enjoyment. We see that men become like dancing dogs. They'll also give up their principles and give up their position. You know, how many leaders, you know, we had a president of the United States who ended up in an illicit affair with his secretary and he got impeached. How much he gave up, you know, he knew, you know, that if he was caught at that, he was going to lose the presidency, he was going to lose the position, he was going to disgrace himself, disgrace the whole country, you know, just go down in history as a complete baboon, you know, just like somebody who's totally out of control. And yet he did it. So yeah, that's also not very intelligent and not very trustworthy. You know, that he disappointed the people, the citizens. So yeah, but because what we're talking about here is the battle, the situation where men will be killed and women will be unprotected. But later in chapter 3, Krishna is going to talk a lot about lust. He's going to talk all about lust, and he's not just talking about women. He's talking about everyone and how lust destroys intelligence. So even someone who is intelligent, you know, who is gifted with, you know, good, solid, rational intelligence, but, you know, by contemplating the objects of the senses, then lust develops, and from that anger arises, and then there's bewilderment of memory. One becomes deluded, and then memory is bewildered, and then intelligence is lost. Buddhi nasho. He says, Buddhi nasho, intelligence is destroyed by lust and anger and all this. So one thing is not having a lot of intelligence to begin with. Another thing is having your intelligence destroyed, but the result is the same. No intelligence, lack of intelligence, making stupid decisions in life, becoming degraded, compromising your principles, falling down. And that can happen to anyone. So yeah, you know, men also need to be very careful that, okay, I've been gifted with this, you know, this rational intelligence, this buddhi, but I need to protect it from, it doesn't become buddhi nasho, doesn't become destroyed. Okay.
Mataji, I had one more question, if it's okay.
Yes, go ahead.
Actually, Kshatriyas, okay, according to the Kshatriyas, they decided to drink the blood and all because they were Kshatriyas, right? So, but why did because they were so pious. So why did they agree to play the board game? Why did they actually agree to play the board game? Because that is a form of gambling, and gambling obviously, because it is not necessary for Kshatriyas to gamble, right? So
yeah. Yeah, well, because for Kshatriyas, there's a code that if a Kshatriya is challenged, he needs to accept the challenge. So they went there and they challenged him to that gambling match. And so Yudhisthira felt obliged that, oh, I've been challenged, I need to accept the challenge. But weakness was that when he saw that they were cheating, when the whole thing was rigged, you know, he had to call them out on that, you know, yeah, that was a weakness of Yudhisthira, is that he kept going with that gambling match. Even after he saw that it wasn't just, you know, a friendly challenge, that it was actually he was falling into the hands of some demoniac scheme.
Thank you, ma'am.
Vaibhavi?
Hare Krishna, Mataji. So I have a doubt here that it is mentioned that men are more into adultery in comparison to women, and women are more they're not rational, they're more emotional. So here we are talking about after effects of war, that after war, women will be not safe. So is it not a question
Yeah.
on men that men are not trustworthy here?
The question of
Like
what?
a question that
I didn't-
men are not trustworthy, women will be left alone, and the men around the society are not very trustworthy. So is it really not the question that indirectly Krishna is trying to tell us that men are not trustworthy, so we should not be blind?
Yeah, I mean that too. Prabhupada says in the purport, in the last sentence, he says, irresponsible men provoke adultery in society. So yeah, Prabhupada is saying that it's not the fault of the women. It's the fault of these irresponsible men. They're the ones who provoke it. It's not the women who provoke it. It's the men who provoke it. So yeah, that's not very intelligent, because it's ultimately the women are victimized by these irresponsible men. But if the irresponsible, if all the men were responsible, then they wouldn't do that to the women in their vulnerable state, and then there would be no problem. So actually the root of the problem is the irresponsible men, right? And then the women just give them the opportunity for that. So yeah.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare
Is
Krishna.
that okay?
Thank you so much.
I mean, ultimately, it takes two to tango. In illicit sex, everybody is stupid. It's not that they're both to blame. The woman is less intelligent for letting the man do that to her. The man is less intelligent for, allowing his intelligence to be destroyed by lust and just forgetting the goal of life, forgetting the whole purpose of his existence, and indulging like in sense gratification like an animal. It's just everybody's just totally pathetic. Okay. All right. So when the women are not protected, and then there are these irresponsible men in society, then there's this whole sequence. There's a whole sequence. So it starts, Krishna outlines the progressive steps towards the destruction of dynasty. So it starts with killing the elder family members. So in war, the male elders of the family are killed, and then that leads to the eternal family traditions being vanquished. And so the family becomes involved in irreligion. And then women become polluted, which results in unwanted progeny. And then because those unwanted progeny are not trained in all the duties that they are obligated to perform on behalf of the family, then that results in the ancestors falling down, right? Which is an increase in unwanted population certainly causes hellish life for both the family and for those who destroy the family tradition. The ancestors of such corrupt families fall down because the performance for offering them food and water are entirely stopped. And then after that, community projects and family welfare activities are devastated. And finally, the whole family goes to hell, basically. So that's what Krishna says, that those who destroy family traditions dwell always in hell. So it's not looking good. So Arjuna is very concerned. You can see that Arjuna, his concern is not just for himself, but he's concerned for the whole society. How will people make spiritual advancement? How will society go forward? There's going to be complete social chaos after this war. There's going to be men just attacking and raping and pillaging these poor women. and they're going to be these unwanted children that are not cared for, that are not taught values. The religion of the family is going to be thrown out the window because the women are going to be struggling to just take care of all their unwanted children. And then when these community projects are not, there are no social welfare projects are going on, then people are going to be suffering. You know, all kinds of vulnerable people are going to be left just out in the street and not cared for. The ancestors, no one's going to be doing pinda for the relatives, so they're all going to go to hell. And then because people in general are not performing religious activities, they're also going to hell. So it's just a complete doom and gloom scenario. And Arjuna is thinking that I can't do it. So I just can't fight and kill these people and leave society like that. And so his conclusion is, better for me if the sons of Dhritarashtra, weapons in hand, were to kill me unarmed and unresisting on the battlefield. In other words, let them just kill me. And then, you know, even if one or maybe 5 of us Pandavas have to die, but that's only 5 people dead. And all these other men can stay alive. They can take care of their wives. They can take care of their children. They can protect society from going to the dogs. So saying that, Arjuna puts down his bow and arrow, sits down on his chariot, and he just slumps there with his head down, thinking, can't face this battle. And so chapter 1 ends like that. But I want to point out here that although we're talking about how Arjuna is on the mental platform and he is making all these material considerations, because these are mundane considerations. He's thinking in terms of mundane morality. But he's also showing his qualifications as a disciple. Because in the beginning of the next chapter, we're going to see how Arjuna becomes the disciple of Krishna. He appeals to Krishna, and now I'm your disciple and a soul surrendered unto you, please instruct me. So the qualifications that we see are in text 31. Well, even before that, in text 28, we see Prabhupada talks about, well, it comes up in 27. 27, we see his compassion. So compassion is a symptom of a Vaishnava. That soft-heartedness is a characteristic, Prabhupada said, characteristic of a pure devotee of the Lord. It's not a weakness. It's a Vaishnava quality. And it's a good quality of a qualification of a disciple. And then another qualification is in text 31, where he says, Nacha Shreyo Nupashyami. He says, I don't see how any good can come from this battle. But the word he uses is Shreya. So Shreya means the ultimate good. And throughout the scriptures, in Srimad Bhagavatam, that's the question that the sages are asking. Like, what is the ultimate good for all people? What is the Shreya? So this is what, a disciple, someone who's really eager to understand spiritual life, is always interested in the Shreya. They're not interested in Priya. Priya means short-term immediate benefit, whereas Shreya means the ultimate long-term spiritual benefit. So this is what Arjuna is concerned about, is the Shreya. And he says it again in text in 2:7, that famous verse where he says, Yat Shreyasyan, what is it? I'm losing all my Sanskrit verses. He says, Yat Shreyasyan Nishchitam Bruhitanme. He says, tell me what is best? What is the ultimate good? What is the Shreya for me in this situation? Okay, so that's a qualification of a disciple. And then in texts 32 to 35, we see that he's not interested in material gain. So that's a qualification of a good disciple, is that they're not interested in material gain. Because he's saying, what use are the kingdom? What use is material happiness? I have no use for material things in my life. Okay? I'm interested in spiritual growth, interested in spiritual advancement. So that's a qualification of a disciple. And then, let's see, text 37, 38. We can see a qualification in Arjuna is that he's not greedy. he has absence of greed, because he says that although these men, the opposing armies, are overtaken by greed, but I'm not greedy for the kingdom. I'm not greedy for power and all the royal treasury. I don't care about that stuff. So he's not greedy. Greed is one of the things that Rupa Goswami says in the Nectar of Instruction is destroys devotional service, right? Being greedy for mundane achievements. So Arjuna doesn't have that. He's qualified as a disciple. In text 43, when Arjuna is pointing out that in their next life, these people who destroy family traditions are going to hell, that shows that he understands that the soul is eternal, that there is a next life. So that's a good qualification of a disciple, is basic knowledge that the soul is eternal. And then in text 44, in the next verse, it's interesting. I really like this verse because he's saying, alas, how strange it is that we're preparing to commit greatly sinful acts. So what he's doing here is he's being self-aware, right? He's kind of stepping back and examining his own thought process, examining his own the direction of his mind, of his thoughts and his activities, his thinking, feeling, and willing processes of the mind. So this is a very good qualification of a disciple, is to be able to step back and be reflective, to examine oneself and one's motivations before doing any activity. And then finally, we see here in text 46, where the word here is samvigya, he's distressed. Samvigya, shoka samvigya manasa. So shoka means lamenting, full of lamentation. Samvigya means completely distressed. And manasa, his mind. So his mind is completely distressed. So this is actually a qualification of a disciple, is to understand that we desperately need help. Otherwise, if you think that your life is great, that you're doing just fine, then you don't need a guru, right? Why would you approach a guru for guidance if you feel like you have your life all figured out? So it's when we come to this position where we're like, I have no idea what to do in my life. I need serious guidance. Then that's a good qualification. Pandit Gadadhar Prabhu.
Yes, Mataji. Mataji, there is one more qualification mentioned in text number 36, that he is forgiving, stating that rather than killing his own kinsmen for political reasons, it would be better to forgive them on the grounds of religion and saintly behavior.
Okay, great. Yeah, you can add that to the list. That he's forgiving. Yeah, and that's a quality of a devotee. Thank you. Okay, so any questions or comments on chapter 1? Yes, Damni.
Hare Krishna, Mataji, Dandat Pranam. Mataji, I have question from the introduction, like the Duryodhana get a chance to choose whether the Krishna or the team, but the army doesn't get a chance to choose what they want to choose. Were they okay with the Duryodhana?
You're saying at the beginning, when Krishna gave Duryodhana the first choice of whether he wanted the army or Krishna?
Yes, Krishna gave. Yes. So Duryodhana selected the army.
Yeah.
So were army okay with it? Army was okay that we will support Duryodhana. We don't want to support Krishna's side.
Yeah, Arjuna was ecstatic with Duryodhana's decision because Arjuna wanted Krishna.
Okay.
I mean, because he knew that if you have the Supreme Personality of Godhead on your side, it's like you know, how can you lose? If you have God on your side, it's like it doesn't matter how many there can be. Every person in the planet can be fighting against you, and you're still going to win. But Duryodhana was so ignorant that he thought that, oh well, if Krishna's not going to fight, then he's pretty useless. Then I'll take the army. But Arjuna knew that if Krishna's there, then there's bound to be victory. And that's what we learned from Bhagavad Gita, right? The very last verse of Bhagavad Gita is that famous verse, Yatra Yogeshvara Krishna, Yatra Partho Dhanurdhara, Tatra Shura Vijayo Bhutir, Dhruva Nitir, Matir Mama. That wherever there is Krishna, the master of all mystics, and wherever there is Arjuna, the supreme archer, there will also be certainly opulence, victory, extraordinary power, and morality. That's a concluding statement by Sanjay. So if Krishna is there and the pure devotee is there, then all success is going to be there. Nothing else is required. Even if you're disadvantaged in every other possible way, still going to be victorious. Okay, Jyoti.
Mataji, in that text, it is written like it is mentioned like how the Arjuna started feeling like, okay, it's better to get killed than to fight because of his soft-heartedness, and that is one of the signs of a devotee. Devotees are so soft-hearted and they are so compassionate. So I was just meditating on this point, like is there chances like devotees, because of that soft-heartedness, may take wrong decisions until and unless protected or advised by Krishna, because they are so soft-hearted, so like that.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that Krishna always protects his devotees. So the reason that sometimes we feel like we need to be hard-hearted is because we feel like we need to protect ourselves, right? We need to put a hard shell out on the outside so that people don't hurt us. But if we understand that Krishna is always protecting us, then we don't need to have that hard shell anymore, because we can allow ourselves to to open our hearts to others, to share our thoughts and feelings, and be vulnerable, because we know that Krishna's got our back. Krishna's gonna take care of us if anybody tries to poke us. Yeah. Of course, we also have to be intelligent, and discriminate between, who to make ourselves vulnerable to, because there are envious people out there, and keep a distance from them. But we don't need to be just totally hard-hearted. We should still be soft-hearted, and especially with devotees and innocent people. Okay. Shubham Bhardwaj.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Say, Mataji, a person, a devotee, is in army or in police. So how do that devotee make a balance, like being forgiving and side by side performing his duties, like restraining people, and as said in the Vedic intentions, maybe sometimes he has to kill someone. So how do he make a balance?
How do you be forgiving and kill someone at the same time?
Yeah, as he's a devotee and he's working in army or in police.
Well, there's a difference between, if it's your duty, it's like, Mahatma Prabhu, I don't know if you know him, he's an initiating guru in ISKCON, and he does a forgiveness course. And he says that forgiveness means letting go of the grudge, or letting go of the resentment that you hold in your heart against somebody who has mistreated you. So we should forgive, because then we can be free of the pain that that it's like holding on to he says that not forgiving someone is like drinking poison and hope that the other person will die, because the grudge, that resentment, that's poisoning you, and the other person doesn't care. They don't care that you're having a grudge. They don't care that you're burning with resentment. They don't care that your whole life is destroyed and you can't move on because what they did to you doesn't affect them at all. So we need to give up we need to forgive so that we can get free from that pain, get free from all the negative feelings that are associated with that person and what they did to us. At the same time, it's our duty to make sure that the person, do whatever we can to make sure that the person doesn't mistreat others, doesn't cause the same pain to others. So that's why there's, the criminal justice system, because if somebody, attacks and mugs someone, attacks some old woman on the street and steals her money. So the person needs to be imprisoned so that they don't do it to some other old vulnerable person. So there's still a duty. And even if the old woman's like, oh, I forgive him, he was a poor person and he doesn't have money to even feed his children, so he was just doing what he had to do to survive, she may be very forgiving and compassionate and forgive him, but the person still needs to be punished so he stops doing it, and so that he understands that that's not what you do, and he rectifies that criminal mentality. So yeah, Mahatma was saying that there was someone who he was one of his disciples, and she had a husband who was very abusive. So the husband was just horrible, beating her up all the time and stuff. And so finally she came out with it and she told him about it, and she said that every time I just forgive him and give him another chance and forgive him, but he doesn't change. And then Mahatma said that it's good for you to forgive him, but still he needs to understand that what he's doing is wrong, because he otherwise he's making offenses, he's committing sinful activities, and he's going to have to take birth again and suffer the same thing. So ended up that she went to, she approached authorities and she explained what he's doing, and he ended up in jail. So she forgave him. She didn't hold it against him. She understood that, he maybe had trauma in childhood, or he unable to process his emotions in an adult way, and so he lashes out like this. So she didn't hold it against him personally, but at the same time she took the necessary steps to put him in jail so he could learn a lesson that you need to stop doing that. So forgiveness doesn't exclude punishment. You can forgive someone and also punish them.
All right. Thank you, Mataji.
Hanuman Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Please accept my obeisances. Now, it's a very important point you mentioned about this forgiveness and compassion. So, especially in ISKCON management, there are situations where a devotee can be forgiven personally for what he or she has done and also deserves compassion. At the same time, in the mission of ISKCON preaching and dynamic movement, then how to balance in management that forgiveness and compassion vis-a-vis becoming obstruction in preaching activities ISKCON. Could you kindly explain how we understand this aspect?
Yeah, when you first were starting to ask the question, I was thinking of, when devotees do, like we've had some unfortunate instances of devotees who are abusing children in different ways, for example. So in one sense, we can forgive them, but we also need to take action. But also compassion needs to be there, because when people do things wrong, we need to give them a chance to rectify themselves. So let's say that somebody's doing something wrong, and then the management gets to know about it, and then they go in there and be like, this is wrong, you need to stop doing this. If this happens again, you're finished, And then we see that the person, they come to their senses, maybe they get help, they get some kind of professional therapy to help them understand what is, the root of the malfunction in their consciousness that's causing them to hurt people, and they actually change. So that's possible. And, the process of devotional service also is very transformative. It cleanses the heart. It cleanses away these anarthas which cause us to commit sinful activities. So, if we forgive the person and we try to be compassionate, but then we don't see the change, we don't see any even will to change or any acknowledgement that what they did was wrong, then, then the compassionate thing to do is to give them very heavy consequences. Like we've seen that some devotees have had to be banned from temples and banned from any kind of leadership position and things like that. So they're different, there's a soft love and tough love. So soft love is that love that gives another chance, that tries to encourage them to do the right thing. But if they're not taking the opportunity to do the right thing and improve themselves, then the tough love is, okay, so now you need to face the consequences of your actions. But in either case, it's compassion. Like when a judge gives a death sentence to someone who's been a chain killer or some psychopathic mass murderer, it's out of compassion for the rest of society, who doesn't have to live in fear of mass murderers walking the street, and also compassion to the person, because by that person being killed, they get free from the reactions of their sin of murdering. So in both ways, it's compassion. Compassion is not always being nicey nice and, just patting people on the head and telling them that it's okay. That story that Prabhupada tells about the son who was raised by his aunt. So his mother died. His mother and father died when he was a small child. So everybody felt sorry for him. So they never wanted him to suffer any more than he was already suffering. So they didn't punish him. They didn't discipline him. They didn't, they're always just cuddling him and coddling him and telling him he was a good boy and giving him, all kinds of treats and facilities. And then he ended up becoming a criminal. And then he was there on standing on the platform about to be hung. And then they asked him, the executioners asked him, any last words, anything you want to say to anyone? And he said, yes, call my aunt here, the one who raised me. And so the aunt went up there and she was crying and everything. And he said, come here, I want to tell you something privately. So she put her head close. Come a little closer. I want to whisper in your ear. So she put her ear very close. And then when it was close enough, he just bit her ear. He bit her ear so hard. And she screamed. She was like, what? And then he said that I'm here because you never disciplined me. You just let me do whatever I want. And I thought that I went through life thinking I could do whatever I want. Whatever my mind urged me to do, I would do. And that's gotten me here. So was it compassion to just pamper him and give him a soft, comfortable, indulgent life? No, that was actually violence. So we have to make sure that we have proper understanding of what is real compassion.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Hare Krishna.
Vaibhavi?
Hare Krishna, Mataji. I just have a doubt that does forgiveness means that we keep forgiving the person and going back to that person again and again, because we are forgiving them, we have compassion for them, we want them to be in the mission or do some good for the society. This is what our mood is. And that person, the other person, is constantly using some other situation to hurt you in some or the other way. So is it okay to move away from that person instead of keep forgiving them and hurting them yourself again and again, just to be merciful on yourself? Is it okay to step back?
Yeah, obviously. Yeah, we have to distance ourselves from abusive people. Yeah. I remember one time I was tolerating and forgiving a certain person in my life that was just being really horrible to me. And then I was thinking I was doing the right thing, that it was my duty to just go on, just taking the humble position, being more humble than a blade of grass. The grass gets walked all over and trampled on, and I should just be more humble than the grass and the tree. You know, people do all kinds of things to trees, and the tree just stands there and tolerates it. So in the mood of Trinada peace and Nichaya Nena Tarori Vasihishna, I was thinking that was the right thing to do. But it was making me very depressed, actually. It was not favorable for my devotional service. I was just feeling crushed and oppressed and discouraged. And so I wrote to my spiritual master, and I asked him, I told him, this is the situation, this is how I'm feeling. And then he wrote back, and he said that he sent an email back, and the title of the subject of the email was The Rule, R-U-L-E, rule, the rule. And then he said, the rule is that if you're in a situation where you're being abused, you have to leave. You cannot stay in a situation and just let someone keep abusing you. So like that, yeah, whatever situation we're in, we can't just let people mistreat us, because it's not good for us, and it's not good for the person, and it's not good for anybody. Even people, you know, in a family, if they're children, it's not good for other family members to witness abuse. It's not good for friends and people that we work with to see, you know, a colleague at the workplace being mistreated. It just brings down everybody's consciousness, everybody's morale. Everybody starts living in fear because all these fear and power and control dynamics that go on. And it's just horrible for all parties concerned. So if our just distancing ourselves from the person who's mistreating us can stop the abuse and just kind of like break that cycle, then that's helpful for everyone. And we should do that, even though it may be difficult. Yes, Pandita Gadadhar.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji, for the wonderful session today. I do not have any questions as such, but just wanted to know what we need to read for tomorrow's sessions, Mataji. How many shloks, or which chapter 2, till which shlok number we need to pre-read it?
Oh, good question. Yeah, tomorrow I think we're not having class because it's Lord Nrsimha's appearance day, right? So that'll
Yes,
be
Mataji.
class. All right, so we're gonna cover chapter 2 in 2 classes. So it'll be yeah, roughly half. What I'll do is I'll send a text message to Rukmini Hari Sevani or Shruti Priya. Yeah, and then they'll pass it on to you. Okay? I have to look
Okay,
at this.
Mataji. Okay. Thank you, Mataji. Thank you
Thanks
so
for
much.
asking. So we're 4 minutes over time. If someone, Jyoti, you have a question you're dying to ask, I'll take it.
Just last question, Mataji, just 1 second. Like, I just wanted to ask, like, is it okay to not preach to anyone who can take advantage of that preaching? Like, who are not, is it okay to not preach them if it affects our own Krishna consciousness?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're supposed, we have to use our discrimination in preaching also, that we should, you know, a Madhyam Adhikari, that's the preacher, has to be able to distinguish between 4 different kinds of people, right? That one person is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, our object of worship. So we worship the Lord. And then there's the devotees, that we make friendship with the devotees. And then innocent people, that we should give mercy to innocent people and try to share Krishna consciousness with them and help them that way. And then there are the envious. So envious people should be avoided. So if you're trying to give Krishna consciousness to someone and they're just like lashing out at you and insulting you and whatever, then, you know, just stop talking to them. Just be like, have a nice day, sir, madam, whatever. Just have a nice day and just walk away and stay away from the envious people. So yeah, also if there are devotees who are envious of us, who are just doing things to harm us and put us down, just stay away from them. Try to distance yourself to whatever extent that's possible and seek positive association. And that's part of what it means to surrender to Krishna, is to accept what's favorable for our Krishna consciousness and reject what's unfavorable. So we're constantly having to assess and reassess all the different situations of our life, you know, and our association is one of them. So if we're in association which is unfavorable, which is making us stressed and depressed, like Prabhupada said about his god brothers, he said, all I got from my god brothers was oppression, repression, and depression. So he didn't stay with his god brothers. He went and started his own movement. where he was inspired and he was encouraged and supported by his disciples. So like that, we have to separate ourselves from association which is unfavorable for our spiritual advancement, and seek out association that's favorable, that's inspiring. Association where we feel valued and encouraged and uplifted. Okay. Alrighty. Thank you very much. So we shall see you on Thursday. Have a good evening and have a very happy, purifying Lord Nrsingadev's appearance day tomorrow. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so very much, Mataji, for always giving us your association. It is like really a blessing to have your association. Thank you so much. When we, I have already learned Bhagavad, Bhakti Vaibhav from you. I already had NOD sessions from you, Bhakti Shastri. Now this time Bhagavad Gita. It's like always blessing that I just wanna hear from you, and it really goes into heart. And I really wanna follow what I hear. Thank you so very much, Mataji. Thank you.
Thank you. Jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhupada Priyamaji ki
Hare
jai.
Krishna.